The fitness industry is changing. COVID has changed the way we think about our health and the way we think about our training. In this episode of the Self-Made podcast, I bring Stephen Collins back on to discuss a couple of these topics in depth. The first, we talk about the move to home gyms. Steve has set up an incredible home gym, one that I'm very jealous of, living in a box in Hong Kong. And we talk through how he got this set up, how he built his gym from a very modest setup to the setup that he has now, including conditioning tracks, high-end racks, dumbbells, barbells, and everything that you need to get his clients and himself in shape, and why he transitioned from working for a gym to working at home from his home gym, and the advice he'd give for you if you were thinking about setting up your own home gym. We also then move into talking about fitness tech. It's a booming industry, and with us being more health conscious than ever, there's more data metrics to track than ever before, from resting heart rate to blood pressure to HRV to steps to oxygen saturation and everything else. It can be a little bit overwhelming, and there are so many devices. How do you know which one is the right one for you? We look at the devices that both me and Steve couldn't live without, the things that we have purchased ourselves and what we think of them, and a little bit of advice on each individual metric. What is to be taken seriously? Where are the pros and cons of metrics like smart scales where we're tracking body fat, HRV, resting heart rate, blood pressure, speed devices? All these things have their pros and all these things have their cons, and we discuss that in great depth. I also go into my own personal story of how my Oura ring helped me propose to my girlfriend. That is for anyone who listens to the end of the show. But if you enjoy the show, please share on your social medias tagging me and Steve Collins. I'll put the links down in the show notes below. And if you enjoy the show, we'd really appreciate you giving us a review on iTunes and giving us a subscribe on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Simon Kingsley Dutton, to get this show to more people and more eyes. And I will leave you with myself and Stephen Collins. So Steve, welcome back to the show. How you doing, man?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, mate. Very well.
So I think this episode, we're really looking into sort of like the future of the fitness industry, which is sort of tech and home gyms. Because I think since COVID started, there's been more of a push for people, one, looking at their health after this big health scare and media paranoia we've lived through for the last couple of years. And when people couldn't go to the gym, they had to adapt. So let's first talk about the home gym thing, because you've got a fantastic home gym setup, which I'm very jealous of, living in a box in Hong Kong. What was the reason you decided to build your home gym?
Well, I was working at a gym facility for someone. So for me, that next step was to move on and run my own business. And I've got the space here at home in the backyard and the beautiful Perth Australian weather to do exactly that. So I did it. And, for me, it makes sense. I do way less hours and I make way more money, and I'm in charge of my equipment and everything I do. So it just makes complete sense for me for that next step. I've worked at commercial gyms and small boutique gyms. I've done it, you know what I mean? So having this is nice. And
I know you do a bit of online coaching now and things like this, but what is it that made you, rather than having your own business, having control of your own diary, you could have freelanced in the gym and saved yourself I've been on calls with you where you've been building stuff and all that hard work and the cost that probably comes, we'll talk about that later, in setting up your own gym. Why did you decide to do what is probably in a way the more complicated upfront option for a home gym, as opposed to these lower barrier to entry options to scale your business?
You know what? The first one was, I didn't want to pay the rent to use someone's facility when I don't need all that equipment. I listened to someone's podcast. I can't remember what it was. And when they get interns in, they make them stay in, the gym mats. They're like a meter by a meter, right?
Yeah.
Those rubber gym mats. And they make them stay in that box and work with their clients. And I don't even know if they give them any equipment. They say, I want you to spend the day in that box, only in that box with your clients that come in, and you have to coach them. So, and I thought about that. I thought, I don't need all that equipment. I don't need all that space. As a good coach, you should be able to coach in that square, right? Obviously, I've got more than a meter square now. You know what I mean? I got a couple of more than that.
You
But
got a conditioning track. It's not just a home gym
I
anymore.
built the conditioning track. I built it myself. I'm very proud of what I've done out there.
Have you always been builder minded? Is that have you been brought up into DIY?
No, my old man is like he did building and all that. You know what I mean? So I studied carpentry at school and all that. So I think if I wasn't pushing to be like, if I weren't a trainer, I'd probably be in a trade like carpentry or something like that. You know what I mean? I love it. I enjoy it.
That's my biggest fear about having a home gym when I go back to the UK, is that I'm just not DIY minded whatsoever. So I'd probably have to spend more than I need to, or just hire you to help me out.
That's it. I was actually thinking of putting some YouTube videos together to show people how you could do it. I think that's a great idea. Like, because I think, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing it now and I can't imagine going back to a gym now. Like, the things that I miss about being in the gym is the environment, the banter, being around a lot of people. Obviously, working from home, it's just me and my clients. It's a lot more lonely. And actually, me and the missus, like the other day, Lana is a school teacher. So she spends all week teaching and socializing with teachers. By the weekend, she's fucked. She doesn't want to do anything like socially, like
Feeling.
Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm at home all day. That's why I go to the other gym to train, so I can get out of the house and get out of the gym. By the weekend, I'm like, I want to, I want to interact more.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? There's the pros and cons there. But like I said earlier, the amount of work I have to do for the money I make and to be in control and in charge, the pros outweigh the cons. You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting you talk about that whatever that podcast was, where they make the guys train with minimal equipment in a meter square. I think it's a valuable skill. I was sitting on a podcast yesterday with Alex Searle, recording for Monday's episode. It's what makes a good personal trainer, and we were talking about like skills of like, if you can learn psychology, you can make any diet work because you can work with your clients, and if you know your anatomy, you can make any program work if you change gyms or if something happens, right? And this is kind of what happened during COVID, right? Everyone got me included to a degree. I was advantaged that I spent years studying my anatomy. I could work stuff out. But we're so spoiled in these big box gyms or these really fancy boutique gyms that as soon as you take away our incline hyper away from us, like, people don't know what to do.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like, going into like the pros and cons, like, you obviously highlighted it there. Other than like the things for your business, what do you reckon, if someone's listening to go, I want a home gym, but I don't really know if it's the right thing for me, what are the biggest pros in your mind of having a home gym setup?
The biggest pros are, as a trainer, you get to select your own equipment. You know what I mean? You can choose what you want. And if you want to buy something else, obviously you just go buy it, or you can swap something else for something in, you know what I mean? So I get to select my own equipment. You know what I mean? I ain't got no stupid shit in here. You know what I mean? No TRX, nothing like that. Not that that's bad equipment. It's just not my style and my style of training. So I get to select my equipment. What else? I don't know. Like that's the main things, really, isn't it, for me? Like equipment selection. I can choose how I want to work. Like how I want to dress. You know what I mean? Just simple things that you may overlook.
I suppose the convenience of it's an advantage for you because you're so into your training. I think the biggest problem I find with people who have home gym setups is if it's at home, so often it collects dust. Because they can just go, I'll just finish this next bit of work, or I'll watch one more episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then they never actually train. I suppose you don't see that because you're so into your training. But that's my biggest word of warning when I see people go, do I want to set up a home gym? It's like, well, it's a very expensive storeroom.
The thing is, right, I set this gym up and I had minimal equipment to start with. Yeah, I had 6 mats. Yeah. And then I built my own weightlifting platform. So I got a load of plywood and I built the platform. And then I had a $500 rack, which was really shitty rack, a power rack. And I put it on top. And then I think I had a set of dumbbells and the worst banged out benches that you can imagine. I had a flat bench and an incline bench that were smashed to pieces. And then I think I had like a couple of bands and a seated calf raise. Like that was all I had. That was
Why
all
the
I had.
seated calf raise, may I ask?
I found it on Marketplace for like $30. In COVID, I then sold it for about 150, $160. How good's that?
You
Not
made
bad.
profit on a calf raise.
But actually, it was brilliant. It was a brilliant calf raise. It was brilliant.
Did you go around your gym just insulting people's calves until someone bought it?
So basically, all I had was that equipment, right? And then over time, as I knew that I was going to be transitioning to my home gym full time. So this was before I started working from home full time. I was just doing a few clients around my full time gig at the other place, yeah. And then all right, cool. I better start investing in once I had those basics in the rack, the bar, dumbbells, cheap dumbbells, and a calf raise machine. I knew I could work with people, yeah, and still deliver good sessions and get good results. So the next step was, all right, I better make this look better. All right, it's getting cold in the winter. It's a tin shed. All right, let me put some insulation and some walls up. All right, so I got some insulation, I got some wood, and I put it all up and I painted the gym, made it look nice. And then the next step was aesthetics. Went to the shop, got a few pictures for the walls. What else did I do? I put a couple of shelves up, a couple of plants up as well, give it that nice look, you know what I mean? Natural look. And then
your YouTube studio.
Yeah, my little YouTube studio. And that was the next step. And I didn't really upgrade my equipment until I was really into making money on a full-time basis. So after the first month of work, then I upgraded a few things. Like, I took the benches to this guy out in the hills 20 minutes away, and he powder coated them for me, and he did all the upholstery again. So give me new backboards, give me new covers, and they came back. I spent like $200-$300 on these two benches. They look incredible, absolutely transformed. They look like brand new benches.
Mm. Do you have a bit of a shock when, like, because obviously when people think about building a home gym, they price up equipment, right? They go, okay, this is what my rack's going to cost, this is what my dumbbell's going to cost. Did you find that sometimes the hidden things added up to big things, like plywood flooring, like pictures, like paint, like soundproofing? With those things, did they add up quite big?
Yeah, big time. They of course they add up. Like this shit is expensive. You know what I mean? But like I worked from having nothing in the gym and like the bare real minimum basics. You know what I mean? Shitty benches, dumbbells, a really poor power rack. But every client that come in, they didn't care. You know what I mean? As you know, the clients didn't care. They come for me to have a good session. They still get effective workouts because, like you said there, if you understand the anatomy and psychology and physiology of how to work with someone and how to put a program together, you're gonna make it work. And I made it work after after a month. Then I got that first upgrade. You know what I mean? The environment. You know what I mean? I made it look better. I made it warmer for the winter. Shit like that. You know what I mean? And then it was the next step. Let me invest in. What did I get next? I think I got. What did I get? I think I got a few small bits like a stability ball and then a nice foam roller and maybe spent a couple of $100. So it's always investments into the gym. Then I got a nice power rack. Then I got a nicer bumper plates. Then I got an air dyne. Then I got a rower. Then I got this and cable. And over time, as your business improves, then you can invest in better equipment. But you don't need to do all that at once.
Looking back now, if someone was going to start to build a home gym on a budget and they could buy 3 pieces of equipment, what 3 pieces of equipment would you encourage them to start with?
I would encourage them to start with an adjustable bench.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we can go flat to the inclines.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend them to buy a set of dumbbells. All right, which is, yes, they can be expensive, but they're going to last you forever. They're going to last.
And they don't need to be Watson dumbbells. They don't need to have your logo on them,
Spinning Revolution dumbbells, yeah. They can just be basic Hex dumbbells that you can get from China or anywhere else. You know what I mean?
Do you like the Watson spinning dumbbells? I found them really odd. I found them more off-putting than beneficial to have the spin.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Especially spotting. I feel dangerous spotting with people, like helping people up with dumbbells.
Yeah, Yeah. I agree. I mean, the only time I was exposed to them was at UP. You know what I mean? And whatever in it, like distribute the stress across the joints. If you lift in properly, so what? You're gonna lift well anyway. You know what I mean? Like
It's such a minutia thing. It's really not worth it, right?
it's whatever in it. You know what I mean? And then so I reckon adjustable bench, a set of decent dumbbells, and then you know what? The third thing, I'd probably go with bands, power bands. You can pull, you can pal off, you can do your mobility drills, you can do all different fancy stuff with them. You know what I mean? Like power bands, you know, the big long power bands, not those booty mini bands. Long power bands. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think during lockdown, I developed such a hate relationship with bands. I just got so sick of them. They're really good for some stuff, terrible for others. But I think on a budget, that's got to be where you start, right? Like your back work is not going to be ideal. You're going to be looking at prone dumbbell rows and then banded pull downs. Is banded pull down great? No. But if you're on a budget, you're not going to be able to afford a row pull down attachment, are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good. I think that's a good free list of equipment. I think. Yeah.
What would you buy if money wasn't an object? If you had 3 pieces of equipment to start with, what would you buy?
If money wasn't an object, I would buy as my first 3 pieces of equipment.
And you can name drop brands here. We're not sponsored by any brand, if anyone's wondering. But you can name drop brands if you think.
You know what? I would go with a real high quality adjustable bench. So that's the same as the first, but just a better quality, maybe one that goes into a decline angle as well. The second one, again, dumbbells, but just maybe better quality dumbbells. Yeah. And then the third one, probably,
and don't say plates, because I'll assume plates are included. If you say a bar, we're going to buy.
Not even a bar. Actually, I wouldn't do that. Maybe I would. Maybe I would choose the third one. I would probably choose a pulley machine, like a pull down row combo, like I've got in there, which is it's a game changer.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things I would probably buy, just because I know it would take up very little space. I'm going to name drop a brand, but take a very little space, but it's really well kitted out for home gyms. Have you ever seen the Prime Prodigy rack?
Yeah.
So, like, for those people that don't know or listen to this, Prime are, I think, a Canadian company, aren't they? And they do a lot of resistance machines that work with the strength curve, but they're often very, very big. But they created this rack, which is basically like a squat rack where you can adjust it, but you can attach pull downs and rows and cables into it. So it's like a dual cable, a pull down, and a squat rack all in one. I think that's a great space saver for what you'd have. And you know what? I tell you what, I think one of the last things I would buy is a barbell. I mean, the fact that I'm not built to get under a bar doesn't help, but I'd probably buy a trap bar and a safety bar before I buy a straight bar. Because especially when I'm working with clients, 90% of people are going to use those before they use the straight bar, I think.
Mm-hmm. I use a straight bar quite a lot with my clients, you know. Obviously not at first, but straight bar is a lot, gets a lot of use from me, you know, whether that's for presses, rows, overhead squats, if they can do that sort of stuff, deadlifts. Yeah, I use the bar a lot, actually. Yeah, I use the bar a lot. Deadlifts.
What's your setup now? So you've got your rack, you've got your dumbbells, you've got your adjustable bench, you've got your pull down.
Yeah, so right now I'll go through what I have. Yeah, I got the Rogue Monster rack, which is brilliant, which has the safety straps, which are like fabric straps that sort of kill the bar. They look after the bar better. They don't make any noise when you lower the bar into the safeties. They're brilliant. What else do I have? I have a lot of Rogue stuff. I got a good Rogue barbell, Rogue calibrated plates.
Rogue barbells are really good.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, really good. Very, very well made. I got from 1 kilo to 40 kilo dumbbells, like just the hex dumbbells, you know, simple hex dumbbells. I got a ton of power bands. What else do I have? I'm going around the room. I've got a sled and a prowler with a rope and the handles to push. What else do I have? I have that rope you can then use for battle ropes if you want. Not that I use it for that. So obviously I got the sled track that I built out there for that.
How long did that take to make? How much of a mission was it to build a track in your garden?
It was enjoyable, actually. Maybe a week.
That's not bad.
Not working every day on it. Basically it was all soil, sand. Our perf it was all sand, right? So I had to compact the sand, level it out. Then I put cracker dust down, which is like a combination of a few materials. I don't know, explain what it is. Compacted that flat. Actually, I compacted it, and when I screeded it, I just screeded it down sloped so that water could drain onto the grass. And then I found an exterior AstroTurf that was good in the sun. I got that shipped in for $800 or whatever from somewhere, and then I cut it and laid it down, glued it down, and yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It's way simpler than I thought it would be to make something like that.
Yeah, it was easy. It was easy. I had, what I mean, like watched a lot of videos, spoke to a few people, and did that. Yeah, that's really beneficial because I don't just use it for sled work. We use it for warm-up drills, all different stuff. You know what I mean? Sprinting if I'm working with like some of the boys, like some of the kids, etc., stuff like that. It's about 12, 13 meters, I think it is.
Do you think a gym setup differs whether you're a coach, athlete, or just a recreational trainee? Because obviously I mentioned from
I think so.
a coach perspective that I wouldn't buy a barbell, and you said you probably would, but you deal with a lot of the athletic population, which probably have been using a barbell for years. Like, how would it differ depending on like the people you're working with or the person you are?
Well, like the athletic population that I work with is probably 40% of my business. All right. And we do a lot of power Olympic lifting. We do like this, from the simplest ones, from squat jumps with the barbell on our backs to, cleans and overhead squats and snatches. So you need a bar for that stuff. Like, you're going to get the best peak power outcomes from using the barbell and load, as opposed to doing dumbbell snatches or kettlebell snatches. You know what I mean? So
you wouldn't use a safety bar for that as well, because it would dump backwards if you started to jump, right?
So the barbell is essential for us, but we could probably work a whole training phase. And you know what? We could probably go 12 months without using a bar if we didn't have access to one. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways you can skin the cat. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'd like, if I've got access to a bar, I'll use it for my athletic based clients.
And is that the only main change you would have between the three?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, with the elderly population, which is my other sort of third of my business, elderly meaning 60 plus, they're there for mobility, they're there for strength, they're there for sort of cardiac health and stuff like that. So the bar is an essential. You know what I mean? Dumbbell is actually not that essential either.
Would you be looking at more stuff that's going to allow them to get into end ranges? So for sake of all, would heel wedges and obviously conditioning stuff and things like that become more dowels to hold on to, become more important?
Yeah. What do I do a lot with my elderly pop? We use a lot of the step in the block, you know what I mean? For step up variations to split squat variations. We use a lot of bands as well for joint mobilization. Actually, I use a ton of cardiovascular equipment with them. So we use the sled a lot for sled pushes, sled drags, because it's low impact and it's simple to do. And it's sort of that end range sort of joint angle. Lots of air dyeing, lots of rowing. And then lots of body weight drills, you know what I mean? Like, do a lot of FRC, functional range conditioning sort of stuff. You know what I mean? You don't need equipment for that.
So when it comes to sort of wrap up the home gym stuff a little bit here, if someone was listening to this and going, right, I've got some advice, I'm pretty certain now that I want to set up my home gym. Do you know, like, roughly how much your gym has cost to date?
I'd have to work it out, but I reckon, like from the day I started it, probably, I want to say 20 to 25K.
Australian, right?
Yeah.
And like, what do you reckon the minimal cost would be? Like, when you did your first, iteration of the gym, what are you looking at?
$3,000.
So it's actually not as expensive as you probably think. Because a lot of people, one of the things that probably puts people off is thinking how expensive it could be. But it's expensive or as cheap as you make it, I suppose.
Listen, I'm sure you're aware. Some people are like impulse buyers, which I may be a little bit like that as well. But like with experience, you know what you need and you know what you don't need. Like for ages, for the last 2 years, I've been weighing up and wanting to get a safety squat bar. But I still haven't got it yet because I know that for me and my clientele, the trap bar should come first. I know that, little things like that, you know what I mean? I know that the pulley machine should come first, you know what I mean? So it's my clients and it's my training style. I know I can categorize what needs to come in first, you know? But yeah, probably all up now, 25K, I'd say, in there.
I suppose it might be good if someone's listening to this who aren't a coach themselves and don't know necessarily how they move or what bits of kit works for them. Probably worth going in and finding a trainer in your area that understands mechanics and the way people move and what ranges you own to see what actually, so you're not wasting money and wasting time. Like someone who's got external rotation that can't get behind a bar, is it a waste of time buying a barbell? So then save yourself your money, buy a trap bar and a safety bar. For someone that's got a really long femur, you might want to invest in heel wedges. So you may want to actually then cut back on something else. So maybe it's good if someone wants to do this and wants to build a home gym, maybe go and find a good trainer, get them to do a bit of an assessment and then work out what would work well for your structure, function.
Yeah, and there'll definitely be some basics that you got to get down. But even I don't have any heel wedges. Like I got 3 pairs of weightlifting shoes in there. 2 of them are from me over the years. And then 1 pair is, I was working with a female lifter and she got a new pair. So she said, do you want these? I said, yeah, cool. Let's leave them here. Now, all my clients with size 6, 7 feet wear those weightlifting shoes.
How small are your feet? You're 6 or 7?
No.
That's the girls.
These were my client shoes.
Oh.
He said, do you want them? I thought, yeah, I can use them for all my clients. Right?
Is that your intake form now? If you have to be 6 or 7 for a girl, like 10, 11 for a guy, and if your feet don't match these, you can't come and train with me.
Basically,
yeah, an intake form. Otherwise, that's it. Your squatting's over. Your goblet squatting forever. Can't get past 20 kilo dumbbells.
So that's what I do now. So
yeah, what bits of advice would you give to someone who listens to this and goes, "I want to start my home gym"? What's like one big bit of advice you would have to get them started in the right direction?
Make sure you talk to your neighbours, man.
Oh, there's a story in this, right?
Music. Well, the thing is, like, you want to be pally with your neighbours, yeah, because you've got people turning up at your fucking house that some people ain't going to seen before. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if your business is going, you've got people turning up every 45, 60 minutes. You know what I mean? Neighbours going to be like, what the fuck's going on? You know what I mean? Who is this? Report you, whatever. Like, you like
drug dealer.
I'm working from home. So, I mean, you asked me that question. I'm always thinking about the coaches that want to set up the home gym. Yeah. Like, keep your gym on the low. That's what I would recommend. Like, keep your business on the low. Let your neighbors know that you've got a home gym, because there's certain times of the day when you're going to have music going. It's going to be a bit loud. You're going to have people come into your house. You know what I mean? Some of my clients come at like 5:15 in the morning. Their cars are quite loud. You know what I mean? So be nice.
Hello, building noise and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And, you know, all my clients know that, sorry, let me rephrase that. Like, my clients know that we're in residential area, so we can't be stupid with the music and the noise, you know what I mean? So, but, you know, that's why those little things are really important. You know, like the safety rack, you know, I've got the fabrics. When we do deadlifts and rack pulls, it doesn't make a noise.
Yeah.
When you teach your client how to deadlift from the floor, put it down softly. It's called a dead lift. You're meant to pull it from a dead stop. Don't worry about touch and go reps. So things like that, you know what I mean? Teach your clients how to lift properly and execute techniques properly, how to rack the bar properly. Little things like that, minimize the noise.
So like moving on to tech, before we sort of break down a few of the more common pieces of fitness tech out there at the moment, what do you own and what personally could you not live without?
What, tech-wise?
Yeah.
heart rate monitor, so a blood pressure monitor, blood pressure thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your one piece? Is that the only thing you feel you couldn't live without?
Oh, I don't know, man. Like,
What's
you know
on
what? I
your
love
wrist?
my watch. I love my
Yeah.
watch.
Is that a Garmin?
It's a Garmin. Yeah, I love my watch. Like, so personally, you know what I mean? I love this because it's got my stopwatch, it's got my step count, it's got my heart rate, it's got my oxygen saturation levels, not that I ever use it. It's got all that shit. You know what I mean? So I can track my heart rate averages, my resting heart rates, and all that sort of shit. So I love that.
Why Garmin?
One of the main reasons was I like the Apple Watch, but I didn't want to have it linked to my phone and my email and stuff. I didn't want to have a lot of distractions. Although I'm fully aware that this can do the same thing. You can get all your notifications on it from your phone and email anyway. But I don't know. I don't know. That was my go-to. And I've from what I've read, this is better for performance.
I would agree with that. I think it's something where people don't think about as well, right? Because how many people, especially if you're a more recreational trainee that isn't like yet as committed to training as like Steve is committed to training, imagine people rest too long in training anyway. And imagine if you get your emails and all your notifications and your Instagram, and you now want to go and check your phone.
Oh, man.
The amount of time you probably waste in training because of that Apple Watch.
I've literally, and like, 2-3 times a week, I go to the local gym because it gets me out the house, it gets me out the home gym, and I get some steps in for 15 minutes. I walk to the gym, get some sunshine. And the only thing that annoys me is when people are sitting there on the machines, like everyone listening, I'm sure you're aware, when people waste time on their phones on the machine in between their sets, I'm like, for fuck's sake, they're doing my head in.
Thumb training, really strong
man.
hypertrophy in the thumbs.
Yeah, and listen, sometimes, cool. You get caught slipping, you're on your phone, you've taken too much rest period. But if it's between every set, for fuck's sake, it drives me insane. So I don't let my clients do that. I do not let my clients do that.
No, I absolutely agree with that. Like, if you got a big like deadline, then fair enough. But you shouldn't be like on your phone all the time because you'll find a distraction.
Yeah. So I think my watch, not that I can't live without it, but like this is my favorite tech. Yeah. And then for work-related purposes, it's obviously my blood pressure.
Yeah.
Monitor.
What made you say blood pressure? I totally agree with you. That's my first bit of kit, I think. But why a blood pressure cuff?
Oh man, like it's just so important, and and other good quality coaches know, like if you ain't checking that, you may run into problems. You know what I mean? First of all, it should be part of your your health assessment anyway. When people come in, you need to check. Don't just go off what they tell you. Check their blood pressure, check their resting heart rate, and then use that to monitor going forward. Especially because I work with 60 plus.
I have a love-hate relation with blood pressure testing. I value the importance, and it's called the silent killer for a reason, right? We see people with high blood pressure that lose it, but I find I do think it's the most inaccurate form of testing because so many things affect it, and you can never truly standardize it. We talk about how body weight has fluctuations, but you can take a real average in body weight, right? There is a trend. Things come up, they go up a little bit, and it trends down. Blood pressure can be wild, depending on so many things that aren't in our control. Like, I go to the doctors, and I'm sure a lot of people listen to this also do the same, and they get white coat syndrome. So I always have high blood pressure when I go to the doctors. But when I check at home in the morning, no issues. You have caffeine, you have a bad night's sleep, you're stressed. There's so many factors that affect it. But I never, ever look at a blood pressure reading and I go, I trust this is accurate. Never once in my career.
But this is the thing, like, when it comes to tech, the two most important things is reliability and validity. All right. Now, reliability is how consistent the measurement is. Can the results be reproduced under the same conditions? All right. Is it reliable tech? All right. And a blood pressure monitor, yes, it is. I mean, they use it in healthcare, you know what I mean? And then is it valid? Is it accurate? And yes, it is. The problem is, like what you're saying, is the client coming in the same circumstances? You know what I mean? Have they had caffeine? Are they well hydrated? Are they stressed? Did they have poor sleep the night before? All those factors, right?
But when it comes to this, but when you look at, you can say that with like body weight, right? Because it's fairly easy, give or take a little bit of variance, to be in circumstances that are not going to affect body weight. But we can't say, is the client coming in consistent circumstances? Because they could have someone just go, hey, there's an extra deadline, or hey, your mum's got sick, or your dog's a bit ill, right? These completely out of our control things doesn't just change blood pressure a little bit. Wild discrepancies in blood pressure. You can go from being low blood pressure to hypertension by having a bit of bad news.
Yeah. No, you're right.
And that's my problem with them.
I still think, I agree. I still think it's a measurement that should be done. And, you're looking at the trend over time. You know what I mean? If the trend over time is it's going down or maintaining, then that's a good thing. If it's trending up, then it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? So it's different data sets. It's different data points. You know what I mean? Like fat loss, right? You weigh in a lot, and if it's going down, then we know if you're on the right track. You know, I think that's how you need to take blood pressure as well. You can't just take one set of points and say, oh, boom. You know what I mean? So
I think it's a good thing to invest in your own blood pressure cuff, because I think when you test it, any test you should do, I think, with blood pressure. Let's say I'm doing a measurement session in the gym. I will do blood pressure when they come in, chill them out, have a conversation, blood pressure.
Yeah.
Do the calipers, do the circumference measurements, blood pressure. So we get them to relax a little bit more. And then what I would probably do from there is, in the first 3-4 weeks, if I'm worried about them, I go buy your own blood pressure cuff and take this every single morning under the same conditions, and we try and standardize it. And then we can go to once every 4 weeks or once every 8 weeks just to check it. But I think if you're not taking it daily, there's, especially early on, there's so much wild variance.
For sure.
It borderline redundant.
And again, it's like how you, it's not even how you interpret the result, innit? It's how you actually, like the advice you give from the result. You know what I mean? Like just one, you get someone in, check their blood pressure. Once you know the history and what they're going through, where they're at, then you advise them with their hydration, their nutrition. And if there's some concern, you have to maybe go to the doctor, check it out, innit? And then over time, we work on this. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? And it does allow you to adjust training, like, as you're aware, you know what I mean? It allows you to adjust training.
So let me move on to like some of the more common bits of tech. And I think it's good. I'm glad that you mentioned blood pressure first, because despite my skepticism with the reliability of it, it is a really important piece of tech I think everyone should use. And I think everyone should probably buy their own, because it's not really think Apple Watch, think Whoop. And there's no point checking HRV if you don't know where your blood pressure's at. And I think getting it done at the doctor's or getting it done at your personal training session is a pretty useless endeavor, because it's going to be wildly different. But if you take it in the first thing in the morning, relaxed, maybe chill out. I often if I was going to take blood pressure, I'd probably do some 10 minutes of meditation first, get myself in a relaxed state, take it, as opposed to taking it just so I've woken up. Because waking up in itself will rise blood pressure.
Yes. So, you're right.
So there's so many variants. I think that's why it's worthwhile having your own one. But often, the big common thing, let's just address the elephant in the room first when it comes to fitness tech, because we're normally talking watches, rings, Whoop bands, etc. And one of the things that a lot of people look at first when you get them is calorie counting. What's your take on the calorie counts on these things? How accurate are they? And how much stock can we take in the calorie counts on these devices?
I mean, that's probably the biggest issue with these watches that track people's calories. I used to do classes at the other gym, and some people are like, "Oh my god, that was a brutal session. I burned 700 calories." I'm like, "So what? Who fucking cares? It doesn't matter." Yes, you burnt 700 calories because your fucking heart rate's so high for so long. That doesn't mean we are actually accurately burning 700 calories. And what does it matter anyway? Because, when you train, it only constitutes for maybe 5% of your overall calorie expenditure in the day. So, that's where it encourages people to think about their training this is when they're burning fat and burning calories, which we know that isn't the case.
Yeah. I think when you're looking at calorie counts on these things, it's basically how we're interpreting it. And a lot of people put an oversimplistic view on calories in versus calories out and think, well, my watch tells you I burned 700 calories, so now I can eat 700 calories extra. And this is the reason why people end up getting so frustrated of lack of weight loss, because they go, I'm in the deficit, I'm following it. But they're not telling you the extra 700 because their watch is validated to them that that's the right idea to go.
Yeah.
And they're not taking into account, okay, so let's say you burnt 700 calories. One, very unlikely. That's based on heart rate, not based on weight, size, genetic factors, based on metabolic rate, thermic effect of food, NEATs and non-exercise, what you're fidgeting the rest of the day. All these things constitute the calories out part of the equation. Your digestive health, your health and nutrient absorption all dictate this. We cannot say that this thing actually burns that. So the biggest bit of advice I would give with these watches and things like this is do not influence your nutrition based off this. But you want to use it as a baseline. The way I use calories as opposed to time in terms of cardio sometimes is that when you're doing steady state cardio, someone will go for 30 minutes, let's say. Week 1, because they're motivated, they're power walking 30 minutes. Week 6, as their NEAT drops, they're just going for a gentle stroll. And they don't realize they've burnt less calories. So if I say burn 300 calories on the treadmill, it is the same, even though it's probably not 300 calories, it's the same output each time. So if it takes you 15 minutes on week 1 and 20 minutes on week 6, it's the same amount of output. And so at least I get a consistent level, but I certainly don't take stock of the calories.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and that's where obviously the watches that track the calories are doing somewhat of an injustice to people's understanding, right? To calories in versus calories out, you know? And it really is not good because it, like we said there, it teaches people, it reinforces to people that, it's about the workout and how hard you're working, which is a big part of it, of course, but it's not the main reason why we train, right? That's the right way to put it.
Yeah, so we look at the 3 main things that people love. So if you were going to pick one, we've got the Apple Watch, we've got the Oura Ring, and we've got the Whoop. These are the 3 main ones that people use, other than your Garmin. Yeah. If you were going to pick one of those to buy, which one would it be and why?
I would use, say those 3 again, Apple Watch.
Oura Ring, Whoop.
I would go with, from what I know, I would go with the Whoop.
Why the Whoop band?
I think I've never used it, but haven't had any clients use it. But I know I've got friends that have used it, and they like the way it tracks their HRV, their sleep, and it tracks a lot of things, right? A lot of physiological metrics.
I think it's the most
skin temperature. I think it tracks respiratory rate or something else as well.
Yes. I think it's the most useful out of these trackers in terms of what to use. I think Apple Watch does some stuff, but I think I look at the Apple Watch, I look at it, they build it like they build the iPhone, in the sense of they've got the technology to have so much more stuff on it, but they don't. And they're delaying it so they can sell you the next Apple Watch. So like HRV wasn't added until like the latest generation ones. Yeah. I also think there's so much stuff in there that it could be a really good fitness tracker or a really terrible one, depending on the apps that you've got on your phone that work for it. And we already mentioned the distractions. And I've got an Apple Watch and I forget to charge it all the time and I don't use it that much for what it's for. You know, for me, it's a stopwatch. It's a clock, and that is literally a watch. You know, and that's basically it. So I've also got an Oura Ring, but I haven't got a Whoop band. But I've got a lot of clients to do. And looking at the 2, I think the Oura Ring, apparently being on the finger, is much more accurate for resting heart rate, much more accurate for HRV, and to some extent maybe sleep, because it's easy to wear during sleep. So I do think the Oura Ring, if you're looking for accuracy, is probably the best metric. The one thing the Oura Ring doesn't do is actually track your performance during training. So it's purely a recovery tool.
And that's it. You know, like one of my online clients, right? He has an Oura Ring and he uses it to gauge whether he's going to train or not. But like sometimes the tech can just get in the way of just fucking toughen up and get in there and get it done. right?
That is the clip I'm going to take for the show.
For fuck's sake, sometimes it does my nutting.
I couldn't agree more. HRV is one of these things that's become so popular recently, and very few people know how to interpret it.
Yes.
You're looking at it in the same way we spoke about blood pressure, right? You're looking at broader trends over time. I don't care what your HRV is, but I care is what's happening to it. And yeah, the thing with the Oura ring is that HRV has become such a popular thing, but very few people know how to interpret it. It's the trends that we're sort of looking for. And I see people, as you say, they use it as my HRV's low, I shouldn't train hard today. And that could be further from the truth. I've seen people come in with lower HRV and come in and hit PBs. I've seen people come in with great HRV and have a terrible session. Like, there's so many things at play what comes to a good training performance. And also, if you think about, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy as well, right? If you go into the gym going, oh, my HRV is low, it's going to be a terrible session. Well, then of course it's going to be a terrible session.
Yeah,
whereas if you go in thinking, I'm going to smash this, regardless of HRV, you're more likely to smash it.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's what I mean. Like, sometimes you just got to get in there and get it done. It's not just HRV. Like, do you want to explain what HRV is for anyone that doesn't understand it quickly? Just like really briefly.
Yeah. So essentially, HRV is heart rate variability. So in the most simplistic way possible, it's the time between the beats. And you want a high heart rate variability that shows your resilience to stress is good. So you can respond to stressful situations and then come back to baseline well. So you want over time, you want to see your HRV go up. That shows you're getting fitter. That shows your stress response is getting better. If it's going down, it shows you maybe going into overtraining or under-recovered or breaking down.
Yeah. So I'll add to that. So it's like you say, it's a measure of your autonomic system. And part of that autonomic system is that sympathetic side, which is your fight or flight, feed and fuck system, and the parasympathetic side, which is more of that rest and digest. And in between beats, blah blah blah. But just so people are aware that, there are 3 factors that can affect your HRV, right? Lifestyle factors, alcohol, hydration, nutrition. Biological factors such as your age. So as you get older, your HRV will naturally decrease. This gender, genetics, and then the last one is what's the last one?
Training.
Training. Volume, intensity, days, all that sort of shit. Rest periods, all that sort of shit. So
and I think we're seeing a trend here, aren't we? With all these metrics and things tracked, it's like everything's got to be taken with a pinch of salt. Like, people got in great shape before all this tech came about. Yeah. It's useful. The more metrics you track, the more data you have. You can manage what you measure. But that being said, no piece of data in isolation tells you everything, and there are flaws in every single metric. And HRV is no different.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree. I don't even use HRV that much. Like, there are more simple ways to measure whether someone is under recovered, right? We've just asked them some questions, how was your sleep? Normally that's the first one that becomes impaired, right? Your sleep. So how was your sleep? How's your energy? How's your mood? How's your fatigue today? Normal questions, right?
And I also think as well, this is where trainers learning about the different signs of overtraining depending on the stimulus you're looking for, because HRV will probably go down if you're overtrained anyway, but it only tells you, look, you are overtrained, rather than what's actually going on. Whereas if I look at somebody who's done, let's say, a strength block for 5-6 weeks, the signs of overtraining are going to look a little bit different from someone who's done a high volume block for 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, true.
Someone who's doing a strength block, you're going to see more nervous system fatigue. You're going to see the sleep. You're going to see brain fog. You're going to see those sort of issues. You're going to see like fatigue issues, like, man, I'm exhausted. Someone who's doing a high volume block, you might get niggles and tendonitis, and you might be sore for a really long time. Both of those are overtraining in different ways. And you can then either do your traditional deload, or, and this is a different topic for a different day, maybe this is next week's podcast, or you can switch the stimulus. Okay, I'm going to do a high nervous system thing whilst I recover from this. Is hence why people do, accumulation intensification phases. So I think HRV it could be useful to see trends in someone's fitness and show them that they're improving and increase motivation that way. but it wouldn't be how I would track things, because I want to know more about what's going on than you are just overtrained. Cool, but what is going on? Is your nervous system fucked? Do you need to change your exercises? It's too basic a factor. It's like saying, I want to lose weight. What are you doing with your nutrition? Yes, I'm eating food. Rather than saying how many calories you're on, what's going on.
And that's it. It's just a little bit of much that we can take, you know what I mean, and make adjustments, look at, and, you know, but a good high HRV shows that you are capable of adapting.
Yeah.
But you need to establish a baseline for everyone, right?
Exactly. And that's why it doesn't matter where people start, right? As long as you see where they're going, which is the main factor. I think for me, like moving on to sort of like the practical sides of things, I mean, I like, again, the biggest problem I have with tech in any sense, it's almost managing. As you can see, for people who watch this on YouTube, I am not wearing my Apple Watch or my Oura ring. Why is that? Because we're in a world today where I've got to come home and I've got to charge my watch, my ring, my laptop, my iPad, my phone. What else do I have to charge? Probably, you know, my camera, like there's so much stuff now that we have to charge that something's got to fall by the wayside. So are you going to use, if you're going to invest in a piece of tech like this, are you generally going to use it enough to make your money's worth back?
Yeah, true.
And this is almost my problem, particularly with the Whoop band. This is where I think why I didn't get a Whoop band, even though I think it's probably the most user-friendly, because you can train with it and it teaches you training stuff, whereas Oura doesn't, and you absolutely destroy it. You scratch it to hell by going into the gym with an Oura ring on. So, and it hurts when you're trying to grab a dumbbell with it.
Yeah.
But the Whoop is a subscription. And I have so many subscriptions, especially if you're a business owner. You're going to have Active Campaign and Zapier and Calendly and Google Drive and storage. And it's just another subscription on top of the pile. I would much rather pay for something outright and I don't have that cost hanging over my head.
Yep. And use it as you will. Yep.
I presume your Garmin's a one-off cost, right?
Yeah, it's a one-off cost, and then I get the app on the phone. So it's just, if I ever want to look at it, I'll look at it. It's just, that's it, done. You know, I'm sure there's additional things that you can do, maybe subscription-based. I don't think there is, but I think that's why the Apple Watch is also good. You know what I mean? Because it's just a one-off purchase, and then you know what I mean. That's it, done, isn't it? Like you can purchase the apps and stuff, but you can tell the time. You can use it as a step tracker, which is very accurate. You can use it as a heart rate tool, which is pretty accurate as well. Yeah, the smartwatches are pretty accurate at resting heart rates. What else? Oxygen saturation is pretty accurate as well.
And people forget you can do a lot of this stuff on your phone. So like you can measure, there's a thing where you put your finger over your camera to measure HRV. And while that's not necessarily the most accurate method of doing it, if anyone follows Joel Jameson's work, who's probably the guy that's put more science and research into HRV than almost anyone else on the planet with athletes, he says it's a valid use of it. It's not his favorite, but it's not rubbish enough that he doesn't mention it. So
interesting.
You know, like, do we need to buy extra pieces when our phone does a lot of this? It does our steps, it does everything else. Like a lot of stuff can be done for our phone. So I think it's just, are you willing and are you going to make the most of that investment?
What I'm aware, right, with all these companies, like Garmin, Apple, like all of their tech that they use in these watches, etc., are very, very similar. It's the money that they spend on the secret algorithms that create the data is what are more advanced on certain products than others. So that's where the difference is, and that's where I think, like, you know, watches that aren't reliable and then watches that are reliable. You know, I mean, that's where you pay for the better quality, because it's not better tech, but it's better algorithms that they use to put your data together. That's what I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the I will always be glad that I got my Oura ring for something completely irrelevant. The Oura ring played a huge role in me planning my proposal. So I'll always be grateful for it. This is always worth telling the story. I came to the, finally after way too long, came to the conclusion I was going to propose to Ellie, and I ordered my Oura ring. And someone says to me, like, you can either get your sizing kit for free, where they send you like these loads of these different rings, and you can try them on and find which one, or you can, if you have one, you don't need it. And I had a friend of mine who was like, oh, I can lend you mine, and I was like, no, because I know what Ellie's going to do. I know when the sizing kit comes, she's going to start trying them all on a ring finger and make the joke about, oh, well, this is my size. So I went and I did it, and I took that one and I put it in my bag, and I took that to the ring shop where I got the engagement ring made, and I went, this is her size. Go and make it. And for that, it will be, no matter how much or how little I use the Oura ring, it'll be always worth the investment. So if any guys out here want to propose to their girlfriend,
this is the way.
And you want a bit of fitness deck, this is the way to do it, because I guarantee you they'll start, when you see loads of different ring sizes, they'll start trying them on, and you can take that to a store. That's that. I'll give you that bit of advice for free.
So with the Oura ring, like, you can choose your size, yeah? Like, how did you know what size to get? Like,
so they send this ring sizing kit. So they have literally lots of different Oura, like plastic Oura rings that have no tech in them, and you get loads of them, and you basically just try them all on, whichever one fits. You go online, you go, it was size F, and then they send you an Oura ring that size.
Cool. Yeah, cool.
And then or an engagement ring of that size, but Oura didn't make her engagement ring. I'll tell you that. That'd be a bit of a cop out.
Cool.
Yeah, I can check Ellie's HRV on our wedding day. So just finish. Go on. After you.
Well, I was just going to say, like, with the step counters on your watches and stuff, like, they're pretty accurate, and like, I think there was a research paper that came out where they reviewed like thousands of different papers on people that were wearing watches like this tech, and they found that this was at June or July of this year, I think. They basically said that wearing these watches can get people walking up to 40 minutes more each day because they're more accountable. That's huge. So that's good. Like, get yourself a watch or something that can track, because it can help encourage you to get out there and get your step count in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, people get them and they get things like Strava, and they start competing against their friends who've got an Apple Watch.
Yeah,
they become more accountable to it. Even if it's not more accurate, they consciously walk more.
Yeah.
And it takes away the excuses. How many times do you go, oh, I left my phone in my bag? But if they've got themselves an Apple Watch, you never have that excuse again, right? So you don't have the excuse to be lazy, and they're more accountable to do more. Although I will say, I wonder sometimes how accurate these things are. That if you wave your wrist or do whatever else, or if you're a guy that's a serial masturbator, how many steps do you reckon you're doing for every cheeky wank that you do?
I think like pedometers.
That's the word, yeah.
I don't think they use them in watches because they're not as accurate. Whereas I think the watches use accelerometers, which kind of measure like 3 directions or something. So maybe a step count is going up if you're doing this a lot. I don't know.
I don't know. Mate, test it. Next week's show, how many wanking steps did we get done?
I wear my watch on my left hand.
Oh, well, I mean, that rookie mistake, mate. I also wear my watch on my left hand, but I'm a lefty. Always get more steps in the day. Always get more steps.
I tell you what the watches are good for though as well, like measuring your oxygen saturation levels. Like with COVID, that when people get COVID, right, their oxygen saturation drops, but it drops to a level that's dangerous, but they don't get any. Basically, you know what oxygen saturation is like.
I don't know as much about it as you do. So yeah, feel free.
All it is basically how much oxygen is in your red blood cells. Yeah. So how much oxygen you got in your body, and it's out of 100%. And healthy individual will be between 95 and 100%. And if you get 90% and below, you're basically deemed as anemic. Yeah. So when people get COVID, their saturation oxygen levels decline, right? But what happens is the decline, they don't show any breathlessness issues. So it's dangerous, but they're unaware that there's a drop. So your watches can track that.
That's interesting. I didn't even know that. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, so they're pretty accurate.
You could.
When you go, when you go doctor's hospital,
yeah,
and they put the thing on your finger.
Yeah,
that's what that is. That's what that's tracking.
So you can almost use it as a precursor to getting COVID. Like you can start to realize that you're maybe coming down with something and maybe stay indoors and potentially stopping the spread.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's what the Hong Kong government should do. Should get everyone Apple Watches.
Yeah, so when it goes too low, you cause hypoxia. You know what I mean? Lack of oxygen.
That's really interesting. I never even thought to look into that. That's really interesting point.
And from what I'm aware, it's pretty reliable and accurate from the watches. So maybe not to a healthcare standard, but
interesting.
That's good to look at. You know what I mean?
Moving into sort of like we're going to finish off with a couple of training devices, but the one thing I just quickly want to talk about. What's your sort of like smart bodyweight scales? You know, the scales that sort of measure body fats and all this other stuff, muscle mass, skeletal muscle mass. What's your thoughts on those? Because I've seen people that weigh way too much stock in this.
Yeah, you know what? I encourage my clients just to use a weighing scale to measure their body weight, not all that other fucking shit. I've had people say, this and that, and they're using this and that. And I just take it with a pinch of salt. If they want to do it, that's fine. But come on, it's not, it's not accurate and it's not reliable. So it's pointless. But some people like doing that. You know what I mean? So whatever.
The problem with bioelectrical impedance scales in general, right, is that hydration level affects them dramatically. So you get clients who lose 5 kilos, they've dropped 10 centimeters around the waist, and they go, "Oh, my body fat says I've gone up." When I get that sort of stuff, when they're putting too much stock in this body fat reading, I will always go, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to take it in the morning. I want you to drink like a liter of water. I want you to come back and take it again and see what's happened. You've not got fatter in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The difference is astronomical.
Yeah, big time. I mean, I encourage my clients not to use that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? And if anyone is listening and using that, then I highly discourage you.
Yeah, just take your body weight, take an average, and see what from there.
Yeah.
So going into fitness tech, like the nerd stuff now, there's a couple of pieces of advice I want to talk about. But first off is one I know you own. Tell me about your speed devices.
So I have a speed device called a push band, and the push band is basically it's called a IMU accelerometer, an inertial measurement unit thing, and it basically measures concentric speed. So concentric speed, for anyone that doesn't understand, it's sort of the pushing of the bench or the throwing of a ball or the upward part of a jump. It measures the speed, and you get 2 different measures of speed. You can measure the mean speed, the mean velocity, or the peak velocity, and you'll choose one of those depending on what you're trying to achieve from your training session. I got it because I used it on one of my studies where we were measuring mean concentric velocity. So yeah, that's basically a summary of what it is.
How much use do you have it since? Does it play a big factor in training? Do you find it particularly useful?
Not for general pop, certainly not for general pop. Can it be used? Certainly can. How would I use it with my athletes? Well, we'd use it for my athletes, like for those reasons I just mentioned, for measuring power, for measuring fatigue, for like readiness. It can measure readiness, if you have someone do 3 counter movement jumps and you know what their power output is, when they come in and train, you can put the push band on their arm and get them to do 3 jumps. And if they're below a certain, if their percentage is down a certain amount, then you may need to tweak your training session because it's an indication they're not fully recovered. So it's a readiness tool.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you attach it to the bar or the person?
Both. You can use both. Yeah. So like if we're measuring barbell velocity, then obviously we attach it to the bar to measure, the speed on the squat or the bench or the power clean. Or if you're doing jumps, you can just attach it onto the arm and jump. Yeah.
I always think those things are interesting as well. Like some of the things we look at in terms of data, it's more about what it provides the client an awareness. Sometimes is more important than the actual data that comes out from itself. Like we all see people that think they've hit 1 rep in reserve, but they've got 12 left. And you could probably show that with that speed. So, okay, put this on the bar, and we're going to measure the speed in this set. And if you see that speed doesn't drop at all through the set, it's like, you've got more in there because you would see a drop in this. And sometimes just a visual representation can show so much. Like Kaiser Strength. Have you seen the Kaiser Strength machines now?
Yeah.
Where they basically measure all this in the machine. That is like can be really useful, I think, just to make clients aware and also know how to beat it. So they want to go slower. They want to have more control rather than this arbitrary, well, my coach is telling me to go slower, but that makes it harder and I want to lift more weight.
Yeah. I think, they're good to use for those, you know what I mean? And like predicting where someone is to failure. I use it sometimes for that as well, but I suppose with coaching experience, you learn that, you know what I mean?
You see it, it's an eye thing, right?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. But saying that, the more experienced you are, the more you can grind reps at higher percentages. So, you know what I mean? Like if you're doing a 1 or 3 or 5 rep max, you can grind the last 1 or 2 at slow speeds because you are intermediate to experienced and you have the technique and the experience of pushing through slower speeds, whereas a beginner may fail earlier because they don't have the experience and the ability to grind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important way to close off on that. The last one I want to talk about, because it's becoming more and more popular now, is EMG studies. There's more and more coaches using EMG studies to prove X, Y, and Z.
Do
you think useful?
To prove people or to prove about muscles firing. I mean, it's good to use, but fucking hell. I mean, in biomechanics, it's obviously good to use, but there's a lot of limitations to it as well.
Tell me about some of those limitations.
Well, most people, unless you're in a lab, you're going to use surface EMG, right? That will just pick up, muscles that we can see. It can't really measure deeper muscles and finer muscles. So there's a limitation there, and there's, other factors like the settings and, how much body fat someone has on them, blood flow to a muscle. Those things will affect the contraction of the muscle unit, So there's things that can't be controlled for.
And I suppose as well, like a lot of people using these now don't have the sample size to actually notice that. So if you're saying like the level of body fat will affect it, blood flow will affect it, then
lactic acid, blood flow, the diameter of the muscle fiber, motor units, all those sort of things,
If to iron out those things to make EMGs more useful, you would need a huge sample size. So you need to say we had 500 people and we all attached to a lat, and it proved that this way of doing the lat pull down was more effective for the lat. But if you're doing it with 1 to 3 people, does it show that much, or is there too many factors?
Well, that's where you use, those are called intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors. The extrinsic factors are the ones that can be controlled for. So the quality of your design, so participants and quality technology and all that sort of shit. You know what I mean? So they can be controlled, but you do need a fair amount of people. You know what I mean?
And yet you've got to also standardize. The more people you have, you've got to standardize the execution of the lift. Which
good point.
Like people don't learn execution in a day. So some people will get it really, really well. Some will go, well, neutral grip pull downs are better for lats. Well, it depends how well someone does the neutral grip pull down.
Yeah. So and that's where it can help us understand what causes the most mechanical stress on muscles and muscle groups. But remember, everyone has different moment arms and therefore produces different torques. So levers will affect muscle recruitment, obviously. So
and again, everyone's unique with that, right?
Exactly. So it's how, your subjects and all that sort of shit, that you can, control. But yeah, I think for normal people, it's overkill. If you're a biomechanist or whatever, then you should be using it. And I think it's good what people are doing it for, like trying to like see what muscles are being recruited the most and all that sort of stuff. I think it's great. But there are other things that you can do, right, to see if the muscle's firing, like ask a question, can you feel that there? Or touch the muscle. Oh, yeah, I can feel
Much
that muscle
cheaper.
firing. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's easy to do. So when you move, when you're at rest, the muscle is still firing because it has to maintain muscle tone and like temperature. So there is some, muscle is firing still. And then when you want to move, there's electrical impulse at the brain that travels to the central and peripheral nerves, which are at the end of that is a motor unit in the muscle. And then that's where your nervous system and your muscle system become one. And then you get a contraction.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a way of like tying this off. I think what we've shown with all the tech things is that they all have their place.
Yeah, they do.
But they all have their place, but no one of these metrics can be taken as gospel. No, that it's HRV, EMG, speed, velocity, steps.
Use them all.
They use as many or as few as you feel capable of. If you feel it's going to like be more stress than it's worth, don't use it. And if you're going to focus on one, I think it's going to be like I shouldn't train because my HRV is low, or I have to do this exact way of doing a pull down because I saw an EMG study on one person that did it. Step back, look at other metrics. Everything is integrated into a bigger picture. And there are simpler ways of doing this. People managed to get in great shape before there was tech. It's useful, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, like EMG is good for like more neurological sort of things and biomechanics, but like, it's how you see whether people have diseases and shit like that. You know what I mean? They put.
Do you follow Jack Taylor?
No.
On Instagram. You should. He's really delved into the nervous system and he does a lot of this stuff. And he's super clever. And he's also, I tell you what, if you want to learn stuff and also get a good night's sleep, he has the world's most soothing voice. It's like a scientific Barry White. It's unbelievable.
Scientific Barry White.
Yeah, mate. God, jeez. Like
sounds sexy.
Yeah, literally. I question my sexuality every time I listen to him talk about the nervous system. It's so soothing.
So what they're I think it's a university in the US, I think. They're basically working on this EMG device that you basically keep on your skin for several days. And it's obviously it's not for biomechanics and like, or it's basically for like, it should help people, that have like neural problems. Like, so if you have a stroke, the first couple of weeks after having the stroke is really, really important to see how you progress. And like you basically, in the first few weeks after having a stroke, you have to train neural circuits to help improve motor function. So like having that sort of stuff on your body for several days can help them assess whether you're improving or not. So that's where the EMG stuff's going from a medical perspective, you know what I mean? And that may help, in our field as well. I don't know, like.
Especially if you're dealing with those older populations, so people are more prone to falls and issues and things like this. That could be really, really useful. So I think we'll call it there because I think we've really discussed the tech and the home gym stuff, and I think that's been really, really, really useful. So for people who want to learn more about you, I know you've been on the show a few times, but if this is the first one that they've listened to, how do people find you? Whether it's working with you in your home gym in Oz, or whether that is working with you online.
If you'd like to work with me in person, I'm in Perth, northern suburbs, but you can always email me at stephen@stephencollinstraining.com or visit my website or my socials, which is Stephen Collins Training.
And your content at the moment, in regards to training stuff and this stuff is really good. So definitely give Steve a follow.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No worries, still, man. Thank you very much for coming on.
Cheers, boss.